Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode, our second episode of Winning Mentality. And my name is Daniel Cutright, and I want to welcome our special guest, Miss Carmen Graves. Carmen, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Super excited to have you on here. And to give a little background to the audience, I know Carmen from actually when I was running at Lynchburg College. Carmen was running at Roanoke College, and a year behind me, and was an absolute stud, and has had an incredibly successful running career. And so maybe we'll kick it off just kind of talking about your career on the track, and really maybe just give these guys an idea of where did that all start for you as far as your athletic career?
Okay. Well, I was lucky enough to run professionally for a couple years with Atlanta Track Club. I made it to the Olympic trials in the 3K steeplechase. But, I just started my running and just being really into athletics when I was a kid, like most people, was playing a bunch of sports. And my favorite sport was soccer. And that's kind of where I got the conditioning to be a runner. It's kind of like you just chase a ball and you end up getting fit. So you don't really you're running as much. That's kind of where I started. I just started with soccer. I was really good. I played it in elementary school and ended up doing it in high school and got recruited for soccer in college. And I kind of did track and field and volleyball in high school too. So I just stayed busy most of the time. And then I ended up deciding after I was recruited for soccer that I also wanted to do track in college as well.
Okay, so multi-sport athlete in college. Now, backing up a step just to kind of childhood, did you have siblings growing up, or did you come from an athletic family? Was it your parents that kind of encouraged you to get into sports, or how did that all start?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have an athletic family. My dad was really big into biking, but and we all played sports when we were younger. But none of my siblings really played a sport in college. None of my parents did. I kind of just fell in love with just working hard, and I was just kind of a natural at it. So I was kind of the sporty person in my family, and my parents were just living through me. They are super supportive. They came to every soccer game, every volleyball game, every track meet. So I'm also a middle child, so that's how I get their attention. Just being the sporty one and making them go to all my games.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that probably had a huge impact on you too, just having parents that were supportive as you're growing up and doing different things, and even being a dual sport athlete in college, having them there was probably really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up only 45 minutes away from Roanoke College. That was really important to me, to be close to my family, because they really wanted to go to my soccer games and all my track meets, and that kind of the support continued through college, and they were a really big part of my whole athletic history. And even after college, when I competed, they were traveling across the country just to see me compete, and I thought that was really cool, and that was their way of bonding with me from a young age and still bonding with me now.
That's awesome. And so you're at Roanoke, and you make the decision, you're recruited for soccer, and you say, hey, I want to run track at the same time, which that it's not very common that in college you get dual sport athletes. Usually you're there, you're focused on one. What kind of led you to that decision, and what would you say were the things that really allowed you to be able to manage both sports at the same time?
Okay, I mean, from a young age, I always did multiple sports at once. And, going to college, a lot of athletes think that they need to choose. And I just didn't feel like I needed to choose, because that's what I did my whole life. So that's kind of why it was easy for me personally to jump at the D3 level and be able to do both sports. I never did cross country because that was my soccer season. So I would basically do my conditioning throughout the fall with the soccer team, and then be ready for indoor and outdoor track. So that's kind of how I handled it. Just, it was my normal life, you know?
Yeah. And that's so true. I think our perception is shaped around by just what we're used to so often. I used to get the question, when I was at Lynchburg, and people would ask, man, like, how do you manage being an athlete with, keeping your grades up and things like that? And my response was similar. I remember saying just, well, it's kind of what I've always done. It's all I've ever really been used to. And honestly, I think I would be less effective in school if I wasn't, pursuing athletics as well. So, was there a point in time where you started realizing like, hey, I'm going to get more serious about the track side of things, and maybe this is something I'm going to, it's going to be a little more long-term for me?
Yeah, I think that my sophomore year was kind of my turning point because I came in thinking I was a 200, 400 sprinter, and realized that maybe that wasn't my strong suit. I was good, but I wasn't going to be going to nationals off of like a 57, 400. So I decided to use that opportunity to bump up, and I started running the 800, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, I can definitely be good at this. Like, that was the first or the second time I went to nationals. I actually was one team my freshman year. So my sophomore year, I went 800. But that was my first time that I was running by myself at a national event. So it meant a little bit more to me. So yeah, I just fell in love with the 8. I was good at it. It was my way of being the best at something. And I think that moment when I was really good at the 800, I shifted my mindset of, I'm, doing well in soccer, but I can be really good at track. And to be honest, like by my senior year, I was kind of done with soccer. I was just so excited for track. And I think just being successful at the 800 really shifted my mindset.
That's cool. And it's something I've seen athletes a lot of times too, that will start a sport late in their career. It's almost like they never experienced that burnout. Sometimes you get, and people have different philosophies on this, but kids that specialize in a sport early on, and by the time they even get to college, they're just so worn out and they want nothing to do with the sport. And so I'm a big believer, and I know a lot of people share this mindset, but kind of like you did growing up doing a lot of different sports, it almost helps your development as an athlete in general. And so you ran in how many national championships was it that you got to compete in?
I think it was 5 national champs between indoor, outdoor, and my freshman year doing the 4x1 outdoor season. So yeah, every time I got there, I somehow squeaked out, an All-American. So I have 5 All-Americans. So yeah, that's.
So 5-time All-American.
Yes. But I've never been the champ. I've been 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So that kind of was hard because that was my goal. It's especially if you're coming in with the top time, you want to be the first one. But I also think that, not getting that title led to kind of that motivation to run after college.
That's so good. So what was your best time in the 800?
It was 207.1. So almost broke,
207.1.
which is like a good time for Division III. I know that there's some crazy ladies out there running like sub 2, and you have to run sub 2 to get All-American in Division I, but it was like respectable time, for Division III.
Yeah. And that's, I think to put it in perspective for people too, there's very few college athletes that go on to run professionally in general. A much smaller fraction of Division III athletes that go on to then run professional. I want to step back a second to, the fact of talking about, your best finish was a 2nd place finish. And, in a way, sometimes I almost feel like you can learn more from your losses, so to speak, and there's so many people that would do anything for a silver medal at a national championship or even run in a national championship. And here you are, a 5-time All-American. But yet there was still this hunger or desire of, I feel like I have more to accomplish. Do you feel like that really did lend itself well to propelling you into your professional career as a runner?
Yeah, I think it did. I had really bad race anxiety when I was in college too. But after I mastered that as well, I started competing well. But, after getting second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place, I did kind of have this desire of kind of something to prove to myself, that I could be a better runner than I was. And I think that just that alone, I would imagine that last race, when I was running a 5K, I was just so fired up for probably a year after. And I think that's where some of my best training came from. But some that slowly fades away, and you need to find new motivation for sure.
Did you have coaches at Roanoke that really made a profound impact on your running career?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like in high school I just ran. I wasn't really doing the training that I needed to be. I had really great coaches in high school, but I was fast and that was good enough. But in college, I think that I really learned a lot about myself as a runner, and I think that that's really when I started to develop.
Okay. Because I know in tracks with sports, it's a little bit different. A lot of times people think about, you have one coach for the team, but, in track, you have your distance coaches, your jumps coaches. And so who was your coach at Roanoke that primarily worked with you? Because you did both. You did triple jump too at Roanoke.
Yeah. Vaughn Lewis, he was actually my coach in high school as well, and then ended up going to coach me at Roanoke, and he was the best triple jumper coach ever. He was so much fun. He really made me enjoy just working with him. It was so fun. And then Carl Blickel, he was my 800 coach. So he came my sophomore year, and that's when I was I run the 8, even though I don't. And then so he started developing me in the 800, and then later afterwards, I worked with him the first couple years after I graduated college, and he continued to coach me in the steeplechase. And then also Finn Pekas, he is the best coach. He was the head coach at the time. He also was the head coach for cross country, and we still keep in touch to this day.
I love Finn. I used to always love catching up with him at meets, and it was funny. He complimented me after one of our conference championship meets, and he told me that any meet that Roanoke ever hosted, I was always welcome. So it was, I've always loved catching up with Finn. So that's great. Now, you referenced in there that you transitioned, from the 800, and then you moved over to the steeplechase. And so talk a little bit about just that transition, because I'll throw in a plug too that those are probably, and we can maybe throw in the 400 hurdles, but they're probably the 3 hardest events in the track: 800 steeplechase and the 400 hurdles. You picked 2 of them to do. So talk about that transition, moving from the 8 to the steeplechase.
Yeah, I begged my coach my senior year to let me try the steeplechase because I saw it for the first time at a track meet, and I was like, this is such a ridiculous event. I want to try it. So we made a deal, and I was going to be able to run it at the home meet, the Roanoke home meet. So I was like, okay, I can run it at the Roanoke home meet. So we did a day of jumping over the barrier and taught me how to do a water jump. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm a triple jumper. I've got this. And then, so I ran at the meet, and I ended up running really well. And the next day my coach was like, oh my gosh, you were so amazing. And I was like, what? I don't want to do this. This is just for fun. This was just a joke. My soccer friends came out and cheered me on. It was funny to them and funny to me. But he was so impressed. And then after college, he kind of suggested to me to go out and run a race. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then ended up just like PRing, and then went to the US national champs in the steeplechase. And that's where my PR still stands. It's 9:47. And yeah, that's kind of when I fell in love with it, and just kind of the perfect event for me because I was good at running long and I was good at jumping. So kind of weirdly turned into my niche, just this joke.
And so that was really the event then that landed you your professional contract as well.
Yeah, I would say that after the Olympic trials, it definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for me. So I moved down to Atlanta to join the Atlanta Track Club, and that was kind of this. I was a steeplechaser at that point. They expected me to run the steeplechase, and that's how I ended up becoming a professional runner.
That's awesome. And so you're down there, you're running in Atlanta, and this is after the trials. With your first Olympic trials, what was that experience like? Because again, this is, it's like one of the pinnacles of American distance running is just being able to participate in the trials. It was in Eugene in 2016. Is that right?
Eugene, yeah.
Yeah. So
Which
still in Eugene
and
just
Eugene.
yeah, I feel like for some reason maybe I'm thinking about a national championship or whatnot, but I got to go watch in 2012, crazy experience, and so you're back out there. What was that like, 2016 running at the trials?
It was a huge goal when I realized that I had potential to run at the Olympic trials. So I worked super hard to get ready for that. I just put training first, and it was hard because I ran a ton of steeplechases that season, and I was like 2 seconds away, 1 second away. And as you know, the steeplechase will beat you up. I mean, you're jumping, you're landing at a weird angle, and but I was like, I have to get the time. I've done it before. I have to go to Olympic trials, and finally got it, but at the expense of my plantar fascia. And so I actually went into the trials with a foot injury, and I was like, I'm still going to run it. So I started, ran it, didn't run well, and probably hurt my foot worse than it should have been, but it was still such an amazing experience for sure.
Yeah. So I'm guessing at some point along the way, like obviously you've had a lot of successes, but oftentimes with these highs, there can come certain lows. You mentioned that you worked through even some racing anxiety. I'm sure there were some injuries along the way. Maybe what were some things that helped you overcome some of the setbacks that you had just throughout your career?
Yeah, it's such a interesting, a lot of people talk about like the highs, and that's what people want to hear, but definitely were a lot of lows, just injuries in general, like moving across the country and ending up injured and missing multiple seasons, having these expectations and then like not seeing them come through. But it's just one of those things that when you're injured, you really realize how much you love it and how much you want to get back to it, and how it's such a big part of your daily life. And that's when you kind of know that it means the most to you, but it's also the most frustrating because, you have to be patient to get back. But, it's always been a part of my life. Like, even though I'm not currently running professionally and getting paid to do it, I still get out every day and run because, I love it. So I think just loving like the sport, and that will definitely get you through those lows that we all as people have. And I think that's a huge part, is just loving what you do.
Yeah, and to just remembering why you're doing it, keeping that at the forefront of your mind. Do you have people around you that are kind of, encouragers for you, or, if you are kind of having a rough day, or you're struggling with recovering from an injury or things like that, people that have been there to kind of support you?
Yeah, I had really great just teammates at Atlanta Track Club. They were definitely my friends, and we would go through injuries at different times and be there to support each other. But also, my fiance, he's now my coach, so he's helping me continue to train. And because, like, if I coach myself, then I probably wouldn't push myself that hard. But he's definitely been there for me for when I've had injuries and when I've had my best races. He was there for me at the Olympic trials. So he definitely helps tremendously.
That's awesome. What was maybe one of your favorite racing experiences that you had during your career?
I think when I ran my 5K PR, it was a really, really cool experience for me. I ran it at Rally Relays. And, I was working really hard throughout the season, and I just had a really, really, really good race. Everything clicked. And then I PR'd in like 16:07. I would have to say a second all-time race was when I went to the U.S. Champs, and it was an indoor race. And I ended up just, going out there, like risking everything and being able to hold on at the end to run my PR of 9:06. So that was
Wow.
yeah, it was just like one of those like, oh my gosh, how am I still in this race type of moments. So I think that was a really cool experience because I didn't expect to race well, and it just kind of clicked.
That's great. You're obviously a competitive person. Nobody really gets to that level of the sport without being somewhat competitive, I would venture to say. Would you say that you enjoy winning more or hate losing more?
I would probably say I hate losing more. Such a crappy feeling. I just hate it. But I don't know. There is like a time when you're just like, I want to win, So it changes, but I would say mostly like I hate losing. Like
Yeah.
games,
Which is,
any games, like yard games, like I'm that person that's like,
yeah. And I think that's the essence of competition too, is it's almost like you get excited when there's other competitive people around you because you know that about yourself, and you know that it's going to push you to keep improving and push yourself to places that maybe you didn't think you were going to go otherwise. So that's awesome. So now I know that we chatted a little bit before this call too, and obviously with the COVID-19 crisis that's going on right now, sports have been flipped upside down. The Olympics and Olympic trials are supposed to happen this year. Those have now been pushed to 2021. And so initially it was looking like maybe you weren't even going to go for the trials for this year, but because we've been given that extra year, is that something that's on your horizon now?
yeah, like you said, life happens. I moved across the country. I started working full time, and training kind of was put in the back burner. Just very stressful time, and I started getting used to like training a little bit and working, but it was never at the level that I would, make it to the Olympic trials. But since I was furloughed, and this whole year has been kind of put on hold with all races and the Olympic trials especially, and the Olympics, it's kind of cool because I have this whole extra year to kind of get ready if I want to. And that's something that I've definitely thought about with this all this craziness. It's like, I want to go for a second time. And it made me realize that, you know, I have the time to do it and I can get there if I want to.
That's so awesome. I think oftentimes when these challenges come up, we're in periods of chaos and uncertainty, it can be really easy to fold up and just kind of hope that it all just, you know, obviously we don't want to be in this, but you're kind of just wishing it would rush past and let's get through it. But in reality, I think there's a silver lining in everything. And it seems like you found that and you realize like, hey, there could also be an opportunity and something really good that can come out of this, which I think is an important mentality for anyone to have, whether that's, you know, you're in your racing career and maybe your race doesn't go exactly the way that you want to on more of a micro level. But now this is something that's opened up doors for you where, you know, you have a shot at the 2021 Olympic trials, which is something that we never would have thought we would have said a 2021 Olympics,
yeah.
you know. So super exciting. So you'll be going after the steeplechase again. Any other big goals or things that you're excited about, things on the horizon for you?
Well, you know, it's hard to plan during these times. It's like you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, I had a wedding planned for July, and it's not happening anymore. So I don't want to plan. I'm just going to kind of go with the flow, and then make plans when it's time.
Now, are you guys, obviously the wedding is canceled, are you guys still gonna get married same time, or are you pushing that back too?
I think we're gonna do like a small ceremony. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, might as well, right? And then we're thinking about just doing that and then holding off the reception and all that stuff till next year.
Yeah, well, you have the important piece. You have each other, so there's that piece. So
Yeah.
awesome. Any final thoughts, or maybe something if you had to give one tip to, let's say, a younger athlete or somebody that is looking to maybe pursue something new or just getting started in what they're doing, something that really helped you as you were getting going in your career?
Yeah, I think it's so often we're afraid to try new things because we're afraid to fail. And I think the biggest like thing for me and my success is just trying new things. Like I tried like the steeplechase and look where it got me, So I think just trying new things and not being afraid to fail and then if you're good at it, go for it.
Awesome. Great tips. Carmen, thanks so much for jumping on today. Really a pleasure to have you on here, and wishing you the best of luck heading into 2021.
Thanks for having me. It was nice catching up.
Absolutely. Take care.